Alright guys, so I'm back with another Truth from Tales video, and this time I chose to do New Year's Eve, which was, well, New Year's in general, just the origins of it and why people celebrate it. And I learned a lot. See, I didn't know anything about this topic going in, and it's really exciting for me. So I hope that I can teach you guys a thing or two about it. And believe it or not, this might be the oldest holiday I've ever studied. If you want to know the origins of New Year's festivities, we're gonna have to go all the way back 4 millennia ago to now. As far as I can find, Babylon was the first country to celebrate the New Year, but they did it just a bit differently than we do nowadays. See, their New Year was in March because this was pre-Roman and all their calendars and whatnot, so theirs was in March. It was an 11-day festival, parades. It was celebrating the either inauguration of a new king or the re-inauguration of an old one. It was a very exciting time. It was very spiritual for them. It was representative of the god Marduk's defeat of the demon Tiamat. It was very old school, and yet it was a New Year's celebration. But if you want to know how it came to be just a little closer to the modern tradition, we're gonna have to travel forward about, I don't know, 2,000 years. Now in 46 BC, Julius Caesar came up with his Julian calendar, which put the new year at the beginning of the year in January. And January was named after the god Janus, with which their New Year celebrations were held. You sacrifice things to Janus to gain favor. And it was Rome. There were raucous parties. It was very exciting. And that's probably the closest thing to the modern day New Year's that we get. Even going forward, once Christianity took hold, things were dialed down a bit. But if you want the origins of the wild parties and all the fun, and it being at the beginning of January, look to ancient Rome. But we're not done here, because a lot of interesting things happen to New Year's over the years, like this. In 567 AD, the Christian church actually abolished the beginning of January as the New Year because it had pagan roots and they wanted to distance themselves from that. So they made the New Year either December 25th in some areas or March 25th, which is funny because December 25th was also a pagan holiday that got moved over. But no, I just find it interesting that for a while they completely got rid of the New Year as we know it. And it wasn't until I think 1587 or so that they actually brought back the January 1st New Year, which is like 1,000 years of just, nope, that can't be right. You know, they had too many wild parties back in the day. Let's put it on Christmas. But, well, that's all as far as the history and the origins go. But there's also a lot of interesting things that started back in the day, like the traditions we have nowadays on New Year's. Like, for example, this one. Kissing on New Year's was actually a way of blessing each other so that they would have a good and successful New Year, and it took place during the Yuletide celebration. And now on to our next tradition. The dropping of the ball actually came as a replacement for the fireworks because they wanted something that wasn't loud and disruptive and possibly dangerous, but still flashy and glamorous to welcome in the new year, and so they decided on the ball dropping, which I think is pretty nice. Now on to another interesting tradition that has much older roots than you would think. The use of resolutions actually is just as ancient as the original Babylonian celebration, which was known as Akitu, which means barley, if I didn't mention that just yet. And during Akitu, they would make these resolutions were actually promises to the king. You get a new king, you make promises that you're going to uphold a certain standard or you'll do certain things. So it actually was a pledge to the country. So that's an interesting take on resolutions. And then the final tradition isn't necessarily as clear, but it's still kind of interesting. The eating of pork. Now, I know pork is eaten in the United States with sauerkraut, and there's not necessarily an explanation for that per se, but in many countries, pork is eaten on New Year's because it's a sign of prosperity and wealth. You eat it going into the new year, and you're going to have a prosperous and wealthy and healthy new year, and I think that's a pretty interesting way to do it. Now, I learned a whole lot deciding to make this video, and I hope you guys did too. So if anyone ever asks you what's the oldest holiday you can think of, I'd have to say that that might just be the New Year celebration. Just don't mention it was in March, might ruin your argument. Thanks for watching, guys, and as always, have a good day.